the Breakfast Club was indeed purgatory. And by the end of this video, you will believe me because I'm going to break it down. Now, I don't think detention was punishment. I think it was judgment. Now, if you don't know what purgatory is pretty much a place or a state of suffering inhabited by the souls of sinners, pretty much expiating their sins before going to heaven, or I guess you could say making good with their sins, coming to terms with the fact of, they sinned and this and that before they go to heaven. So that's what the Breakfast Club was. It's pretty much the waiting room in Limbo. Now, keep in mind, 5 teenagers walk into a school on a Saturday morning and none of them leave the same. There's no sincere parents. And when you do see 1 or 2 of them early on with the 1 or 2 lines that they have, they just act like they are the Grim Reaper sending someone on to purgatory, and they're just like, get out, go. So there's no sincere parents when you do see them. There's no teachers who actually teach, and there's no clocks that matter. Just confession. It's just truth, acceptance in the air and stuff. Y'all seen The Sixth Sense where the kid who sees dead folks, it famously warns us they only see what they want to see. So I'm getting into the theory that the Breakfast Club isn't about high school stereotypes at all. It's about purgatory. Now let's talk about why Saturday never ends. This movie takes place almost entirely in one room. I love movies like that because it shows how creative and how well you are off in an industry like the entertainment industry when it comes to being creative with little to no things. When you can do one room for an entire movie and have it be a classic, I love that stuff. So yeah, but there's no classes, no normal school routines, no future plans beyond the day. Time is strange in purgatory. They often say in purgatory, 1 second here is 1,000 years there. So it's like time is always so relative, right? It stretches, it blurs, it exists only so reflection can happen. Notice how often the characters in the Breakfast Club ask about the time, yet it never feels urgent because this isn't detention, it's waiting. Again, in limbo, it's like a waiting room. If you're frightened of dying and holding on, you'll see devils. If you've made your peace, the devils are really angels. Saturday detention isn't a sentence, it's a threshold, and we see what they do within it. It's amazing. And it's almost as if they were specifically selected in like a pool of something. And what would that be? Pool of dead people. Because they're so specific. They're 5 specific archetypes. They're not just random teens. It seems like there's the brain, the identity defined by the pressure. Then they have the athlete, the dude in the blue, and he's value tied to his performance because they always talking about his wrestling. The princess with the makeup, trapped by expectations and insecurity. The criminal, quote unquote, thug, whatever, bender, whatever you want to call him. He's leveled beyond redemption. And the basket case, as we know, rejected entirely. She don't really say much until she want to. In purgatory, you confront who you were told you are versus who you actually are. That's why stereotypes are the starting point, not the ending. This isn't about cliques. It's about humanity shedding labels. In other words, because all 5 of these core archetypes reflect off of each other so well, the purgatory needs them to balance for this to work, for it to potentially be a possibility for them to end up going to heaven and reflect and make good with their sins. You need to balance these archetypes. And that's why I think we have these 5 archetypes in this room. With them each representing something unfinished, the purgatory needs them just as much as they need the purgatory, because the purgatory needs to be finishing things, completing things, resolving things, and they need to pass through. Hey, if you like what you hear and hit that like, why have you not already? We live. Now let's do this because you ain't never heard this before. So we have now discussed how and why purgatory equals the Breakfast Club, right? Okay, let's talk about Principal Vernon. Specifically Principal Vernon as the gatekeeper, because Vernon doesn't act like a normal authority figure at all. He's extremely detached, unemotional, present but not nurturing. He watches, he tests, he leaves them alone, but on purpose, it seems like. In myth, purgatory always has a warden. Kind of sort of like Thor and the dude that has a big sword watching the gate, kind of sort of like that, but not really. Someone who enforces rules but doesn't guide souls forward, pretty much. Vernon exists to maintain the space, not to save anyone. It's almost as if Principal Vernon knew as the gatekeeper that if he was in their presence, they could never truly reflect. And to pass on, they must truly reflect. So by definition, Principal Vernon's job is to trust them on their own and leave them alone, which is why you don't see him pretty much until he's needing to enforce something. Vernon doesn't care how they arrived, only that they faced themselves before moving on, and correctly. Now, the midpoint of the movie might seem like rebellion, but it's really not. It's really confession, because one by one, they admit abuse, fear, shame, loneliness, some self-hatred. Again, everybody's a different archetype, so it's kind of nutty. And it's honestly textbook purgatory. Because you got to keep in mind, Bender, his parents abuse him. Andrew's father abuse him. Brian's father abuse him. Allison's parents neglect her, emotionally abuse her. Claire's parents use her to get back at each other. So it's like what they all have in common is not being genuinely loved by their parents, which could be the common denominator as to why they are all dead in purgatory. Now, let's be honest, with purgatory, you cannot move forward until the truth is spoken aloud. The room soon becomes a confessional booth. And notice, no one interrupts. Humans interrupt all the fucking time. No one interrupts though. No one mocks. They listen. A simple phrase, "It's not your fault." It echoes throughout this entire film, honestly. And let's not forget that another reason why The Breakfast Club is purgatory is the library is limbo. Like I said earlier, time is different. 1 second here is 1,000 hours or 1,000 days, 1,000 years, whatever there. I'm pretty sure 1,000 years. So keep in mind, one long ass Saturday is gonna be a long time, right? So they aren't reading, but they're surrounded by books, stories, there's history and knowledge and all this. Bender ends up ripping pages out of books, almost showing you that it doesn't mean anything even if you do decide to read. And keep in mind, this is the 80s, early 80s, I'm pretty sure. So reading was TikTok. So no one reading, that's like walking into a building now and no one's on a phone. It's like, yeah, we're in purgatory for sure. Even the ones who are smart aren't reading. They're living their own final chapter. Libraries preserve what once was, right? So it's like symbolism, them being in the library. They don't create futures. This isn't a classroom. Don't forget that. It's an archive of lives being reviewed. Essentially, what a library is. And when they wander the halls, it feels dreamlike, empty, echoing, unreal, because purgatory isn't new. It's familiar. And someone would say school is the exact same thing. Now, let's talk about the letter at the end. I love the letter, honestly, but the essay that Vernon has them write, talk about yourself, whatever. The essay isn't for Vernon. It's a testimony, a collective statement of understanding. We accept the fact that we had to sacrifice a whole Saturday, and I quote, "That's not detention language. That's acceptance." They define themselves not by stereotypes, but by shared humanity. And crucially, only one letter is written. They pass together or not at all. This was their crossing. Hey, if you like what you hear and hit that like, why have you not already? And leave in the comment section if you think that the life we're living right now is some form of limbo, like we're in purgatory. All right, let's get back to this. Now let's talk about that walk home. Notice what we don't see at the end of the film. There's no parents waiting, no explanations, no consequences. They exit separately, yet changed, lighter, different, all accepting a new version of themselves in some way, like souls released, not like students dismissed. And even Principal Vernon has this like look of like, dang, nice, wow. It's not even like he's pissed. Like he spent the whole time pissed. And the football field is wide, it's empty, it's almost unreal, a liminal space, not school, not home, just, there. They don't run or celebrate. They just simply walk off, because I feel closure doesn't feel like victory. It feels like peace. And they were finally at peace and they wanted to enjoy it. Now, maybe the reason this theory works so well is because we've all been there, trapped in a room with versions of ourselves we didn't choose, just labeled, judged, misunderstood more than anything. Purgatory doesn't have to be supernatural. Sometimes it's a Saturday morning where you finally tell the truth. And The Truman Show, we accept the reality of the world with which we're presented until we don't, though. Now, my last reasoning as to why this theory is airtight: the bell never rings. Listen closely. There's no bell at the end of detention, no official release, no signal that the time is resumed. The clocks are all off. They just decide it's over. In purgatory, that's how it works. You don't wait to be dismissed. You leave when you understand. The stereotypes dissolve, not because detention ended, but because judgment did. Maybe detention wasn't the punishment. Maybe it was mercy. 5 lives pause long enough to be seen, heard, and finally understood. And when that happens, you don't need the bell anymore. Simple. So here's the theory in full, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. In The Breakfast Club, the 5 students are already dead or suspended between life and death, and Saturday detention is purgatory. They arrive with labels instead of names because identity is unfinished. Time barely moves because time doesn't matter anymore. No parents appear because their influence is over, and the only authority present is Principal Vernon, and he doesn't guide or comfort. He only enforces the space like a gatekeeper. The library isn't a classroom. It's a holding room, a place surrounded by stories of the past where nothing new is taught, only remembered and reflected upon. Now, don't forget, each student must confront the lie they've lived under: achievement, popularity, rebellion, strength, or invisibility. The rule of purgatory is confession before release, and that's exactly what happens. One by one, they admit who they were pretending to be and why it was killing them. The essay at the end isn't homework, it's testimony. It's one letter because they either pass together or not at all. And when they finally understand each other, the space releases them. They don't celebrate, they don't promise futures, they simply walk away, because purgatory doesn't reward you with answers. It lets you go once you understand the truth about yourself. So what if The Breakfast Club ends the moment they leave the library? What if the walk across the football field isn't freedom, but release? They don't promise lifelong friendship. They don't fix their problems. They simply understand each other. And in purgatory, that's just enough. The final freeze frame isn't triumph. It's peace. Maybe they weren't meant to grow up. Maybe they were meant to let go. Now, if this theory changed how you see The Breakfast Club, hit that like. Why have you not already? That's crazy. Subscribe. Let's do this. Lock in. Stay locked. And if you ever felt defined by a label you didn't choose more than anything, comment it. And if you want more of this, subscribe. Hit the bell. Do what you got to do. And don't forget, sometimes detention isn't punishment. It's simply closure. And we all need it to pass on. Stay smooth.